Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Are you searching for meaningful employment? Are you a student soon to graduate without a clue as to what career path you should follow? Are you a parent struggling to help your offspring figure out what to do in life? Or are you one of thousands who find yourself having to re-career after a layoff or firing? If you fit into any of these scenarios, or you just want to explore something new in the workplace, stay tuned. Career expert Tamara Raymond joins us. She's talking about careering. She says it's a journey. So take the trip with us next on Another View. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. If you want a stark difference between baby boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials, just talk about the workplace. Baby boomers, while they realized that 30 years with the same company and a gold watch was not in the cards, they did tend to settle in and were actually pretty loyal to their employer. Happiness was not a major factor. Millennials are the exact opposite. They want their career to make them happy, and if they're not happy, they'll go elsewhere. Gen Xers fall somewhere in the middle, but the question is, how do you decide what career is your career? Joining us today on Another View is career expert Tamara Raymond, author of Careering. Hi, Tamara. How are you?
Hi, Barbara. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am so glad that you're here today. So as we start this conversation, first of all, tell us the difference between a career and a job.
Right. So a career is something that you dedicate your life to. So usually you're there for an extended period of time. You invest a lot of your energy, money, and this is where you tend to build most of your skills. It's a goal, something you work towards and continue to develop yourself in. A job is something you do in the moment to pay the bills.
To pay the bill. So some people have jobs and they aspire to their careers. Other people are able to come straight out of school or whatever into the career. But you wrote this book because you said that there are a lot of people, young people, as well as older folks who are finding themselves having to re-career, as we say, who really don't have a clue as to how to figure out what their career path should be.
Absolutely. I took the road less traveled, trying to find my own career. I had a lot of questions in high school. What should my career look like? And then later on in life, I achieved what most would consider great success. Executive level job, a very lucrative staffing company, doing very, very well. And then I left to pursue higher education because I just wasn't fulfilled. There was something missing that I couldn't quite put my finger on.
So the money wasn't enough?
No, the money wasn't enough. And I was quite comfortable where that was concerned. But there was just still that something missing that I couldn't quite identify. I wasn't fulfilled.
And so now you're a millennial,
yes.
so you are coming at this from that perspective.
Yep.
I'm a baby boomer, so this would be an interesting conversation in terms of how we approach the workplace. But why was fulfillment so important to you?
Because I spent a lot of time at work. I would occasionally, there were, a couple of times I had to get up and be there at 2 a.m.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time at work and invested a lot of my energy and my skill set and everything into this position. And I didn't feel as if I was making the difference I wanted to make. And there was a lot of success in terms of, particular goals or targets that were met while I was there. But
these were the company's goals or targets,
these were the company's
not yours.
goals or targets. They weren't mine. There was still something missing. My passion is making a difference for others. And I didn't feel I could do that on the one-on-one basis. That fulfills me the most.
Mm-hmm. So today you own your own company.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. My company, Innovative Management Consulting, works with individuals who are established in their career, but want to grow and develop where they are, who are people who are changing careers, as well as I've started more an outreach branch now where we do work with young people to help them where they are, help them achieve their goals.
Now, your book is called Careering, and it is so cute. I have to tell my audience, it's a little pocket-sized book, and it's the pocket guide to exploring your future career. Tell us how this works in terms of if I were to just pick this book up and start to read it, what is the interactive part? What am I doing in order to gain those skills that I need in order to pick the career?
Sure. You hit on something that was key for me in that it's not prescriptive, it's interactive. And what it does, it walks the reader through step by step different stages of the process, taking a look at what your interests are, what your values are. What would you like to get out of life? What is the difference you want to see made? And then from there, okay, well, how are ways that you can explore that? And it really encourages the reader to look at their individual circumstances and the opportunities they currently have. And from there to the next step, getting the job and going to the interview and what happens when you get the job. So
you walk this through every step, but I noticed that you do have places where you really expect the reader to write.
Yes.
In here and to write down their goals and to write down their passions.
Yes.
And so forth.
Yes, I really wanted readers to have the opportunity to write things down because it's a process that you can go through more than once, twice, 3 times, and really take a look at where you started and where you are now. What differences are there? Do you see a trend? Do you see a particular direction, that you may want to go in or pursue even further? And to forward that, the exercises can actually also be downloaded. Say you write in it and there's no more space, you can pull out your notebook or download some of the forms and do it again, because it is a journey. It's not about having the right answer immediately.
So when students are in high school, and they're about to go to college, there's always the what do you want to major in question. And you're saying that a lot of kids have no clue.
A lot of kids have no clue. I had no clue. I thought I wanted one thing and ended up in something completely different. So it's the idea of liking something or thinking something sounds good or interesting. And once you get into it and actually do the day-to-day tasks, you find it's not what you thought it was.
Now, a lot of times, because I remember reading that you said that parents and relatives were trying to steer you towards engineering or being a doctor or different things of that nature, but it really wasn't tapping into your passion. Why is it in today's work environment that passion takes that precedence and moves up the ladder, if you will, in terms of importance?
Because for millennials, it's our form of expression in the world. And that's why it's so important, because it speaks to who I am, what do I want to share with others, and what difference I want to make in the world. Because of that, it's a big part of what we and I look for when taking another step.
Okay, so let's get down to some specifics. So I'm a parent, and I've got a high school or college student, and they're struggling. And I have a daughter, and I have a granddaughter. So my inclination would be to try to steer them into a direction that I would take into consideration their likes and dislikes and so forth, but probably would want to also steer them into a direction where they could actually survive and take care of themselves. So what's the process that you say that parents should do in order to help their young folks?
I think that's perfectly natural and encouraged for parents to want to be a part of their child's life, especially this component of it, because parents have been in the workforce. They've seen a lot. They know you're going to have to pay the bills. Yeah. It's all good and well to do what you like, but at the end of the day, the mortgage is due or what have you. So But there's a reason why the book is designed the way it is, because it really takes you through not only finding your interests and passions, but what would that look like in terms of a viable career option.
Expound on that a little bit.
Right. So you say, okay, I like English. Okay, that's nice. That's wonderful. What exactly do you like about it? You decide, because I like English, I want to be a writer. Now as a child, I can tap into the resources of my parents and see if, there are any authors or journalists or editors in your world that could provide some guidance or support around that. But the key component there is to actually try doing it. And if you find, okay, I said I liked English, I said I was going to be a writer, but this is not turning out the way I wanted to.
I really don't want to sit down
I really
and
don't
write
want to
this
sit down and
story.
write exactly. So then you take a step back and you look, what was it about this English class that you enjoyed? And you found that it was the fact that the teacher allowed you to argue your point or make presentations. That is a very different world than sitting and writing a paper or some form of publication. So in that stance, okay, well, let's take a look at, maybe being an attorney, and what would that look like? And again, tap into your parents' resources and see if there's anybody there that you can interview, that you can possibly intern with, so you can actually see, touch, feel, and make an informed decision in a career where you can actually pay the bills. So translating it from interests and passions to something that is an actual viable career option.
Lisa, our show producer, has two daughters who are both in college at this point. Is it okay when you're at that college age then to change your mind many times in terms of what your career, and in terms, you walk into the door thinking you want to do one thing and you turn to something else? And at one point, do you have to say, okay, I got to make a decision here?
It is okay. And the key is the earlier, the better. And that's one of the reasons the book starts from high school and early college, because the more time you have to try different things and explore different options, the more quickly, hopefully, you make a decision. And you are surrounded in college by professors, people in career services. You have a lot of support, and there are in many cases very active alumni networks that you can tap into. So it's really the perfect time to explore. It's just making use of your resources. And that's one of the things that the book guides you in doing. Identify your resources.
So suppose you don't go to college. Can you still create a career for yourself?
Absolutely. In fact, I may get some kickback for this, but it has been said, and I do believe that traditional college is not for everyone. There are people who are talented in many different areas. In fact, my family, my father decided to go the alternate route. Instead of being an engineer, he decided to be an electrician. Also very different. So he took on a trade and he absolutely loves it. And honestly, I could not see him in the context of an engineer. A very smart man.
But finding his passion as opposed to what others may have decided for him.
Absolutely. And he's made a very great success of it because of that.
So when you're talking about taking advantage of the resources, what is one of the issues that maybe young people have in terms of making your career choice or figuring it out a priority?
In many cases, I've found it's the uncertainty of where to begin. There's overwhelm, there's anxiety, there are certain expectations, that you might be trying to fulfill for your parents. You want to make them proud of you. There might be subjects you like and you don't like. So there are a lot of factors to take into consideration. And not having a guide, that can be somewhat overwhelming.
So if they're feeling overwhelmed and so forth, but you're encouraging them to take that, channel it, so that because it is really critical that they get this done.
It is, because I've seen students in college for 6, 7, I've one recently 8 years. Now,
That's
that's
expensive.
expensive. Right. So the earlier, the better. And just to get that it's okay to try different things, but there's a way to do that is efficient and costs less money.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about careering and what you need to do in order to be able to select the right career for you, whether you are brand new at it in terms of high school or college, or if you are in the workplace and you're still not fulfilled and you want to do something else. Call us now and get some advice on how you can start to make a change. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So if you're in the workplace and this whole idea again of happiness, explain what that means. What does that mean in terms of the workplace? Because there are always going to be some things that you don't want to do. So why is that so critical?
To me, it is the most critical factor. And I don't know if I would use the word happiness.
Okay.
I would probably say finding your passion, because I am an introvert. And writing a book, being on your show, these are not things that I would do voluntarily.
We didn't chain you and make you come in. No, I'm teasing.
No,
but I see what you're saying.
Yes.
In other words, they're not something that you would naturally want to do.
But
how does it help you in terms of your passion?
Because my stand and my passion of making a difference in the lives of others, I'm willing to step out of my comfort zone, step out of myself, and expand my skill set and do things that I wouldn't normally have done.
So, what's the difference between you and I sitting here now and just chatting, and the coaching that you do through your company with helping others to make a career change?
It's geared towards the individual. So it would be more focused on what your interests, strengths, passions, values are. And we work from that moving forward versus now the general conversation that we're having.
Got you. Okay. James joins us from Hampton. Hi, James. You're on the air.
Hey, I really appreciate the conversation. This is sounds like a really good book, and I'm interested in picking it up. As a father of 2 boys and being a tradesman myself, it's really refreshing to hear you talking about the options of other things, because there are, other things out there for people. I know college wasn't really for me, and I fell into the trade by accident, and I absolutely love it. It's my passion. Like you said, finding your passion, those things that you work on at home on your own time to be better at are the things you look at. And as a father of two young boys, I look at these things for the future for them, and I'm trying to find their passions. Like my older son, I know he's not really mechanically inclined at all. So like my trade wouldn't be something I would necessarily put his direction, but he's really into photography and soccer and things like that. And then my younger son, he is very mechanically inclined, comes out and helps me work on the car and everything. And who knows, he might want to be in trades or engineering or something like that. So I think it's important, even with older young people, to look back into your past and find those things that you loved as a child to maybe help you in the future to decide to find your passion.
Okay, James, I see Tamara is sitting here shaking her head. Yes, we'll let her respond in just a moment. Careering, you can find it at Amazon online or other online retailers or in your local bookstore. So it is there for them. He talks about helping his children find their passion.
I commend him. I really appreciate his call and him sharing about his children, because that's exactly right. Say his older son who isn't mechanically inclined, I can relate to that. I'm one of those people who would probably have to hire somebody to change their light bulbs. So, going into something that's geared for engineering or mechanics would not have been the best option. But you said something that was very critical, looking at what they're good at and what they're interested in and fostering that. That is by far the best and most productive thing that you could do. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Stacy joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Stacy. You're on the air.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Great.
Hi. I do have a quick question. I'm a young adult. I went to college for my communication degree. I looked around for a year, and then I couldn't find anything, so I went to the apprenticeship program, which is basically me learning a trade. But at this point, I still haven't really found my passion, and so I was wondering if you have any advice for that.
Okay.
Sure. So when you went to major in communications, did you just do that as a degree, or was there something that you were particularly interested in that had you go that route in the first place?
Essentially, I took that route because it was the quickest way for me to graduate. I was kind of on a tight schedule to graduate due to reasons.
Uh-huh.
Got that.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you enjoy doing?
Well, I really enjoy talking to people. I enjoy playing my violin. Right now, I use tools with my hand. I work with my hands with my tools, but I'm really not really interested in doing that. But I do it because it helps pays my bills.
Got it. So you mentioned you like talking to people. Do you just like meeting people on the street, talking to them, or is there a particular context within which you like having conversations?
I enjoy just generally talking to people on the street. I like listening to people's, whenever they have issues, I always like to talk to them, and I'm a very decent listener, in my opinion. Maybe that's why I majored in communication.
There you go. Subconsciously, you knew there was some interest there. So going up to people, having conversations, that's something you like. That's something I would recommend you explore. Look at various sales-oriented careers where it's really geared towards meeting people. Look at opportunities that involve possibly interviewing people, getting to know their story. That may use your communications degree there. So, you get to incorporate that into what you actually want to do. See if there are opportunities for that. I would probably try taking a look at newspapers, online media outlets, and going from there, seeing what internships they have or calling. And if there is something that doesn't necessarily fit you, having a conversation about creating something.
Okay.
Okay, just a real quick question. Would maybe getting into the political realm work? Is that a possibility?
That would be definitely something you could try. Absolutely. Because you said you liked, hearing people's stories and listening. So I'm getting the sense that you really care about others and quite possibly want to make a difference for them. And that's definitely an avenue where that can happen.
Stacy, thanks for the call. Hopefully those questions and those things gave you something to think about. I watched you go right into your coach mode. That was just incredible. I mean, seriously, in terms of talking with her, because the questions that you asked, how do we learn how to ask those types of questions to ourselves? Because it's one thing to say, I'm passionate about, blue clothes, but how do you expand that so that it starts to make sense to you in terms of a career?
Make note of the things that you spend your time doing, regardless of whether you have to do them or not. That's where I would start. Huh. So if you happen to like editing papers, and that's something your friends will send you their papers to review, and you do it at no cost for free, that might be something to consider.
And so look for that type of job, or start your own. I'm a big advocate of that. It took me a while to get there, but I think for me, it's the best option. And I know for many others. If you're just joining us, we're talking about determining your career with career expert Tamara Raymond, author of Careering. And I want to know then, what is the biggest challenge that people have as they start to either search for that first career or re-career in terms of the interview process? What's the biggest thing, if you could say to anybody who has to go in an interview, if you would just do X or don't forget to do Y, that it would make a huge difference?
Prepare, and honestly, the one thing above preparing, which is saying something, is be courteous to everyone you meet.
Explain.
I interviewed a lot, for my staffing company and as director of human resources for an engineering consulting firm. And what I would do when I was hiring someone, I would always get the feedback of the person at the front desk, or in one instance, I sat at the front desk myself. And this person came in for an interview, and it was an admin position supporting a VP. And it was very interesting because this person came in with quite an attitude. Oh, can I help you? No, you can't help me. What are you here for? What are you here for if you don't, have your things together? So that sort of attitude, do you have a copy of your resume? Don't you have that? Was the response.
Wow.
And
but they were applying for an admin position.
They
representing a vice president.
Yes. And so, I just asked if she needed anything else, showed her into the conference room, let her know that the VP would be with her shortly. And, I heard the VP say to her, the director of human resources will be in shortly. And then I walked into the interview. Let's just say it was a very short interview. And from her body language, she was clear that that behavior was inappropriate. She slumped her shoulders. She had held her head down. So be courteous to those you meet. And I've had interviews myself where, the CEO has said, wow, Jane or Janet or what have you, who is sitting right there is advocating for you before he even started the interview.
Interesting. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So let's talk about some other interview tips. What else would you tell people when you say prepare? For an example, I know when I interview for interns or when Lisa, our producer, interviews, one of the things that we want to know right off the bat is what the person thinks about Another View. And I am amazed at how many people come in who want to intern for the show or participate in some way, and they've never listened to the show.
That's the perfect example. But I remember interviewing one day, and I asked a question or said the name, and so the recruiter said, "Oh, can you tell us a little bit about what you know of us or how you heard of us?" And so I was I was having a conversation. This was a company that was in the aluminum industry. We were having that conversation, and she was surprised. And I wondered why she was surprised. And she said, "You wouldn't believe the amount of people who mix us up with a company that's in the pharmaceutical industry that has a similar yet different name." So from the very basic of making sure you have the name right, doing research on what the company actually does, the very basic, go to the website, review if you can find information on the CEO, dig a little deeper, find information about the department that you want to be working with, and if possible, go on LinkedIn and see if you have the names of the people that you'll be interviewing with. Take a look at their profiles, see what journey they've been on. There might be something you're able to share or relate to that you wouldn't have found out otherwise.
I want to ask you a very sensitive question, but it relates specifically to the mission of Another View. Okay, so
Absolutely.
that is if you have an ethnic name, should you use your ethnic name or should you use initials so that you can get your foot in the door to do the interview?
That's one of those questions that I've actually gotten that question before, and to be quite honest with you, it's unfortunate, but there is discrimination in the workplace. There just is, and if you've been interviewing or you're having trouble, you're sending out your resume and no one's calling you back, then try using your initials and see what happens. I've actually had a role where they had my resume, they spoke to me on the phone, and then when I showed up, I'm clearly African American, I am overweight, and they looked at me, and one lady said to me, I couldn't believe when I saw you, you were the person I interviewed. It just so happened that they had hired me sight unseen.
Wow. And she actually said that to you?
She said that to me.
How did you react? What did you say to her?
So my response to her was, what was it about me that you, well, to be fair, the diversity in that group before I got there was a brunette.
Ah, okay.
So it was clear where that came from. So I had a conversation with her about, well, now that I am here, and I had worked there for about a month or so by the time she'd felt comfortable enough to share that. I said, do you see a difference in the work that I do? And she said to me, you do a fabulous job. And I said, okay, and how would that impact your perspective moving forward? Mm-hmm. And she said, thank you for asking that question because I just got what I said.
I get that. Absolutely. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Anna joins us from Seattle, as in Seattle, Washington?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Are you streaming us live?
Yes. I was just on my NPR thing and somehow I ended up here and I was like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to hear this.
Well, welcome to the show, Anna. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
What's your question?
So I had a question. What if you have been pursuing something all your life and then you realize, okay, I think I need to change? How do you get motivated enough to kind of make that switch over to something else? Because you work so hard for so long, you're like, how do I just move on over?
So the question is, because you've invested so much in that time, how do you make that switch?
How do you switch careers at that point?
Fantastic. Go ahead,
That
Tamara.
is a wonderful question, Anna. And the process is pretty much the same. Looking at what it is that interests you now, if your values have changed, what they are. The key difference is to consider you spent years and quite possibly decades of your life developing certain skills. You have a lot of experience. Don't discount that. The thing to do is to have those skills translate to where you'd like to go. So I had one person, he was an accountant, but he did a lot of work with youth groups or in the community, and he decided he wanted to be the director of a community center. And on his resume, most of that experience focused on his accounting career. But by revamping that and highlighting all the experience he had with his youth groups while considering all the project management and management experience he had and the skills he developed through his career, he was able to land a job within a month or so.
So just take the skills you have, incorporate your passion, and meld the two of them together. Anna, thank you so much for the call. We really appreciate that. Thank you. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. What questions do you have about the workplace, about careering, about changing careers? Tom joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Tom. You're on the air.
Hi. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
I have a comment about, Barbara, your guest a moment ago talked about the use of ethnic names on resumes and applications. And wisely, I think, talked about how we all know discrimination still exists and perhaps trying to avoid an ethnic name in some cases might be the way to go. The other side of that argument, having done a lot of hiring myself, is, to truly be multicultural and push back against discrimination, I've been taught we must be intentional in our actions. So as a hiring person, I sometimes look for ethnic names so that I can be intentional in who I'm selecting to interview. I mean, all things being equal, education being equal and background being equal, I'm only going to interview so many people. And if somebody has an ethnic name, if I'm truly attempting to create a diverse workforce, I will intentionally interview someone who who has that ethnic name. So I just thought I would provide that other side of that argument.
Okay, Tom, thanks so much for the call. We appreciate that. Go ahead. Tamara, you want to react?
I do appreciate Tom, and I commend him. Taking a look at what he shared, however, you'll see that, you either are if you're intentionally looking for diversity, that could also be construed in a not so pleasant light by others. And so...
what do you mean? Explain.
Right. So I've in the past gotten pushback about, focusing or trying to hire a minority.
Okay.
To increase the diversity of the workforce. So there were people who felt slighted.
Because you were looking for a minority.
I was looking for a minority. And it was just whoever showed up, right? Whoever was most qualified. But it would have been nice to have a larger selection in that area. And also I was very curious to see if, what the candidates were like, how diverse a candidate set I could get to present. Mm-hmm. So I hear him, I commend him, and it's both sides of the coin.
Yeah, I think the issue also, at least from what I hear from people who have trouble getting their foot in any door, who have a very ethnic name, that they think that might be a barrier to that. How about after the interview? Let's go back to some etiquette, some interview etiquette for a while here, because younger people in particular are used to texting and Snapchat and all those other social media ways in terms of the way they speak, in terms of the way that they respond to things. Is the thank you note out the door? Is it should you make a call back in a week to say, hey, are you going to hire me? I mean, what should you do once the interview is over?
Once the interview is over, I recommend sending a thank you note within 24 hours. The thank you letter is not dead. People tend to not notice sometimes when you do, but they sure notice when you don't. Wow. So it is critical to send that.
Is email okay, or should it be a personal note?
Email is fine. Email is fine. Personal note is fine, as long as you send something. No texts, an email letter or a mail letter, I think works best.
So if you're in an interview situation and the interviewer says, tell me something about yourself, what should you tell them and what shouldn't you tell them?
This is a great question to prep for before you get to the interview.
Yes, exactly. That's why I bring it up.
And the thing to consider is, what is your experience and what role you're applying for? And how does your work, the history of your work experience to this point, lend itself to that role and is a benefit to the organization? And those are the things that you speak to.
And that's a big thing, especially if you're trying to change a career.
Yes.
Like you were talking about the accountant who wanted to become a head of a community center. Being able to switch those words or to switch that experience into why it would matter in a new position.
The big component there is to focus on your skill set, because skills, no matter what industry, no matter your job, can be very relevant depending on the position you're applying for. Those are the skills you focus on. And if you're changing careers, you've amassed a lot of skills and experience over the years. So not to discount that.
And so name some skills as opposed to experience or titles so that people are clear of what you're talking about.
So project management is a skill as opposed to project manager. And in the world of project management, you would explain what that means. I could have been a project manager in my current role, as a coach. How does that look like? How many people? I got a group of people together and created a structure around training and developing for new employees. So that's a skill set, project management, as opposed to a project manager, the title.
Got you. Excuse me, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. The resume. Mm-hmm. How many different forms of your resume should you have?
I've heard different responses to this. I would say have one detailed resume. I nickname that the Beast.
The Beast. Okay. Okay.
I nickname
And that
that the
has
Beast.
everything.
It has everything under the sun in that resume. And then when you see a role you're applying for, it makes it easier to tailor to that job because you already have the basics and all the information you need. You can just tweak it by putting something further up, something further down, less emphasis depending on how it applies to the role you're applying for, and ensuring that you highlight those skills that we talk about that are relevant to the position you're applying for. So the approach I take that I find has worked really well for a lot of people is having the Beast, a very detailed resume that has all the information that you could possibly want, need, and then tailor it to the position you're applying for.
Mm-hmm. So if you are an older person who finds themselves having to career, do you leave off dates?
Well, the rule of thumb is in detail, you usually go back about 10 years. And after that, you can list positions without necessarily having to go into detail unless that role is relevant to the new position you're applying for.
And so you could move that up. You can
Yes,
rearrange it
you can rearrange
so
it
that the key is having the most relevant information up top and ready to go.
Exactly.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Nikki joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Nikki. You're on the air.
Hi, question. I have a friend who is sending out lots and lots of resumes. She's qualified based on the KSIs and whatnot, but she's not getting any interviews, and the couple that she's getting turned down. So how do you go back to these individuals and say, can you please tell me why I didn't get the job?
It's a great question. Thanks so much for the call. Vicki, go ahead.
That is a great question. And what I've found that works in the past is I will, depending on, the information I have, say I have an email address, I will send an email to that person requesting feedback because, this was something I enjoy. It was a company I really wanted to work with. So I would love and appreciate any feedback you have so that next time I can work on that for next time. So usually sending an email would be good. And in her case, she may want to get a tad more aggressive. If she has a phone number, maybe start by calling the recruiter. If there was an initial recruiter that she spoke to, they sometimes will have a feedback from the various hiring managers or from the different people she spoke to as to why they made the decision that they made. So I would start there. And if she doesn't have the direct contact information for them, I would try contacting the hiring manager at that point.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question from Facebook. Is the standard resume still one page, and how do you decide what to leave off?
The standard resume is one page depending on your years of experience. If you are somebody with 10, 20 years of experience, it's perfectly okay to go to 2 pages or what you need. The important thing is making sure that you share the relevant information necessary as it relates to the job you're applying for.
So if you're working in a job and you are, mid-career, you've got family, you've got a mortgage, you've got all this stuff, could you and should you try to exercise your passion maybe through a volunteer situation or some other way until you are either able to either lucratively move from one to the other or maybe even until you retire to find your passion? Or should you just go for it?
Everybody's situation is different. And that's one of the things that I truly emphasize in the book and why it's written the way it is. Everybody's situation is unique. People's interests, people's personalities are different. And so if, say, you are someone who is mid-career, but you have, $2 million in the bank, then, it might not be a consideration, right? But if you're someone who, you have responsibilities, and you need to take that into consideration when you're making a decision. And so if that is you, then the route to take would be to do a bit more exploring, after hours or through volunteering or, interning or something that is that you can do after hours so it doesn't impact your family.
At what point then, what if you were just absolutely miserable where you are?
Yep.
I guess I'm asking the question of what point do you just that it becomes more peace of mind as opposed to that particular job? How do you make that decision?
Well, how you make that decision is if you are so miserable that you are not as nice to your spouse or children that you would like to be, you find it hard to wake up in the morning, if you find yourself depressed because of your role. I went through that a bit. I had to go all the way to rock bottom before I was willing to consider that my route might not be traditional, and to explore that.
Okay. Let's go to Gail in Hampton. Hi, Gail. You're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for my call.
Uh-huh.
My son has a mild case of intellectual disability. He was in special ed during high school. Now that he's going out into the workplace, he doesn't want to take that stigma with him into the workplace. He feels he can make it, on his own. Should he be, I'm trying to help him best I can as far as his driver's license. Took him a while to get it, but he doesn't want that on his driver's license. And he doesn't want me to step in and speak for him. How do I help him? Or should he tell the interviewer, I have a mild case of intellectual disability, but he is a very hard worker. He's had a few jobs. I've helped him get a few, but he wants to do it on his own. But I know he needs a little help.
That depends on the help he needs. If he's applying for a job that he can do without needing additional assistance, then that's fine. If he's applying for a job where the employer would have to make a few adjustments or considerations, then that would be something I would encourage him to disclose.
Does that make
Does
sense
that
to
help?
you, Gail?
It helps.
You're asking about should he put the disability on his resume, though? I mean, if he went through special, in terms of high school, he would just list the high school. He doesn't have to list what classes he was in or anything like that. Correct.
Correct. We've done that, and if he had a few jobs, it may have one job he was let go because he's very literal. You have to be literal, specific what you need from him, and when you tell him to do it, he's a hard worker. He'll work break his back to get the job done. And he's not social disabled. He's just a mild case of intellectual disability. I mean, he can tell you the moon, stars, constellations, dinosaurs, but as far as maybe tying his shoe, he may have a problem.
Right.
And he loves gaming. He's into the gaming, and he doesn't want to go to college, doesn't want to go to a trade school. But, I mean, the gaming, he can get the games from the store, not even reading the instructions. He's through the game within an hour or two. But as far as the math or reading and comprehending what he reads, it may be a little bit of a challenge.
I wouldn't put that, as Barbara said, that he was in a special ed class in high school or anything like that. What I would focus on is the jobs that he's applying for. What are the requirements of the job? If it's something that's going to require him to tie his shoelace or do things like that, then that might be a conversation he might want to have with his employer. Other than that, if it's not going to have a major impact on his daily tasks, his job function, then I would not.
They're not listed. Thanks, Gail, for the call. We appreciate it, and good luck to you. Martha joins us from Wakefield. Hi, you're on the air.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Would you speak to writing on your resume about your experiences in an active voice versus a passive voice?
As you're writing your resume.
I would
And you
write in
write
an
in your
active voice. You always want to write in an active voice wherever and whenever possible.
So whether it's a past experience
Whether it's a
or not?
past experience, a current experience, you did it, you have the experience, write in an active voice. It speaks more clearly, and most recruiters I know when I'm recruiting, there's something about speaking in an active voice. It speaks to me more clearly.
Okay. Thanks, Martha. We appreciate the call from Wakefield. So, attire. Let's see if we can tackle that in 2 minutes that we have left in the conversation. We still should dress Should we dress for the job, or should we dress conservatively until we get the job?
Well, the answer is both. And
Okay.
here's why. If you're applying for an internship on Capitol Hill, you're going to dress differently than, say, you're applying for an internship in a fashion magazine, right? The rule of thumb is to be clean, be professional, ensure that your pants fit, and that you're comfortable. If you're unsure, always err on the side of being professionally dressed. So, for a startup IT firm, they might be business casual, but if you're unsure, go in a suit. If you're aware, and that's part of the research that you do beforehand. If you know the company culture and what you're walking into, there are many cases that you can adjust for that. But always err on the side of being business, and depending on the industry you're going to, tailor your dress towards that industry.
Okay. Last piece of advice that you would give for anyone who needs to career or re-career, who is going careering, what would you tell them?
I would say be generous with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. It's a journey. None of us, I have very rarely come across people who have all the answers, even those who know exactly what it is they want to do next. There's always some form of growth or change or adjustment that needs to be made.
The book is called Careering, The Pocket Guide to Exploring Your Future Career by Tamara S. Raymond. And you can meet Tamara at 2 o'clock, at 2 upcoming appearances, 2 p.m. on Saturday, January the 27th at Prince Books in downtown Norfolk, and Sunday, January 28th at the Peninsula Town Center Barnes and Noble over in Hampton. And you can also find you on Amazon and
Yes.
any of your other books. So thank you so very much
Thank
for
you for
joining
having
us.
me.
And we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Essie Patha-Murkerson from Law and Order. You are listening to Another View.
And thank you so much for spending time with us today on Another View. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. And while you're there, sign up for our eView newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Next time on Another View, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby with Another View on Health. We'll talk about the rising costs of prescription drugs. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Paris Bogle answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very much for listening to Another View.